Hey everybody, what's happening? Playing a little E Aeolian modal chords here. I call these skip string voicings. I did a video on it. I don't know if a lot of people watched it, but I talk about it in my book. There was a guitar player named Ed Bickert that was Canadian, lived back in the I think he died in the 80s or so. He was a great guitar player, incredibly good at comping. There's a couple of guitar players that are really not known to most people that were really influential, I think, to the guitar community, but because of when they died. Lenny Breau is another one who was really influential guitarist. I wouldn't say just to me, I mean to a lot of guitar players back in the 80s and 70s. But Ed Bickert was one who played a lot of really cool chord voicings, and he would mimic a lot of piano voicings. And so I got these ideas of playing, leaving space for the top note to kind of ring out, and play these inner strings, take a group of 3 inner strings, skip a string, and put a melody note on the top. It could be voicings like this. So if I have this, if I'm thinking in the key of G major, or E Aeolian. And so I take this voicing here, I have a chordal voicing here. So it's a chordal voicing with a melody note on top, but I have this major 7th interval. And then down to here. Now this, you might say, ooh, that sounds kind of like a D9 voicing, but it's like a C Lydian voicing, or Lydian with a 13 on the top there. So it'd be C, F sharp, B, A. Okay. This could also be a sub for D7 or for E minor if the low note is E. Or that's really beautiful there. If I have that, that's 6th on the top there. And then if I go back here and I use this set of intervals here, so I take those notes from G major and then I simply take the chordal voicings up. The chordal voicings are the ones on the A, D, and G strings. And then, so the first thing to do is practice those. So I start here to the first available notes. Then I go up to here, to here, to here, to here. This is where it changes. And then I add a top note. And the top note could either be where it's a 7th away, or I might do a 6th away. Now when you get into some of these like here, and you get into some a little bit more difficult chord shapes, and then up here you've got that voicing, which some of you might play for a D7 chord, but if you just play it here, you play it like a sus chord, but I'm playing it over E for an Aeolian vamp, and then up to here. Really, really dark, brooding, super cool sound. I love those. So I'm going to pick them out for you so you can... this with the 7th on top. Then, it's cool with the fingers if you can isolate the notes. Better to practice them in thirds. Because that way you get used to moving around. Then you can really beautiful. So I call these skip string voicings. So it's a combination of a, modal chord voicings, built in fourths, or chordal voicings with a melody note on top that is, can be a fifth, because, typically you do your modal voicings on the inner strings. So many of you would know these kind of McCoy-Tyner-esque voicings. Like that, and then you'd know them on the top strings as well. But this is kind of combining the two ideas together, and it gives you more of a clear melody note at the top. You can get in some really cool sounds there. Very modern if you use them on the lower strings as well. So let's say I take a voicing like this. So I say D is here, right? And I'm going, and that would be that voicing there. That would be same voicing as there. And then you learn where all those same voicings are in the lower positions. Now some of these get a little bit muddy sounding, but they really can be cool, because if you're going and then, so all these could be used for as a D7 chord, for example. I could play any of these as if I'm comping, I could play these for a D7. If I'm in if I'm doing a 2/5, I could play A minor 7 or 2 5 1. The 2 chord. I've got A in the bass, then I have D in the bass. That would be a perfectly acceptable 2-5-1. Well, one of the cool things about these as well is that I can make it a flat 5 sound. So I could go 2 5 1. That's way hipper. So all I did there is I took this voicing. If you think of a D7 chord or D9 right here, I dropped the root back to here to the flat 7. Then add the third of a D7, then the 13, then the fifth. So that would be a D13 voicing, and I do D7 flat 5 or D13 flat 5. And that's not necessarily a voicing that you would think to grab. So, right? It's really kind of a cool. So if I go 2 5, and I could go to 1 like that. And I did a G Lydian for 1 chord. So 2 5 1. More of a modern sound, really, not guitaristic necessarily. An interesting use of chordal harmony and with the tension. So same thing here. If I take the flat 5 here, I can actually take the sharp 5. But if I take the sharp 5, you're not going to have the 13 and the sharp 5 in the same voicing. So you're going to have to, so you would do something, a voicing more like that. Well, what voicing is that? That's basically a spread triad, a tritone away. Okay? So that doesn't necessarily work in this. So either you have that, and then you've got a doubling there. Really, this is one of the most usable ones, is this one, unless you were to alter the shape. You can go up here. If you did this, that doesn't really work because you get D7 sharp 5. You'd have to alter it to add the flat 5 and the sharp 5 together. Doesn't sound that good. Doesn't sound that modern. That's not good. So you'd have to kind of pick and choose what voicings. This one happens to sound good and sound really cool. So it'd be like 2, 5, 1, like that. I did. So D13 to D7, D13 flat 5 to my 1 chord. Okay, so just some conceptual things to think of when you're trying to come up with new types of voicings to use. I did this piano voicings for guitar video last month or so, and I showed a method of taking the inner strings and going diatonically. First of all, with just 2 notes, and I would go like that up a G major scale. Let's say I'd start down here. Then I add a note, and I do it like this. Then you go up here, then you get to there where you've got, and then I would say, and then you could add notes however you want to do it, whatever shapes you would go with. Let's say I'm going. These would be my spread voicings where every note is moving up one scale degree. That is really how you should work out your chord voicings like that, is to take them, any shape that you have, and move each note diatonically through whatever scale, whether it's a major scale, a melodic minor scale, the harmonic major scale. How many of you watched the harmonic major video on here? I'm really curious because I put that out yesterday, and I was delightfully surprised that people have heard of the harmonic major scale. And I remembered it from class with George Russell, the Lydian chromatic concept. And I know I've had a lot of people ask me about doing a video about the Lydian chromatic concept, and I will do one. George, I want to say it's from the Lydian diminished scale. One of the modes of that is the harmonic major in his concept. His concept is essentially that the Lydian scale, because of its sonic stability, is really the basis. That's really the basis of his entire concept, because there's no unstable notes in it. Every note sounds good against a major chord, for example. So really, Lydian should be relabeled the 1 chord. So mixed Lydian would be the 2 mode, Aeolian would be the 3 mode, and so on and so forth. So that is a simplified version of George's concept for those of you that... How many of you are familiar with the Lydian chromatic concept of tonal organization? How many of you have heard of that term? Because George was extremely influential in the modal jazz development of Miles, honestly, and Coltrane. George was a pioneer because he came up with this idea in the 50s and really kind of sparked, you know, I don't know if they give him credit. I think that they do, though, actually, that he sparked a whole movement. There's interesting, Eric Dolphy was really into George's concept, and George was one of the few people to actually come up with a new concept of tonal organization, and it was based on jazz, and it was based on Lydian being the #1 chord of the tonal system. So really kind of a cool idea. A lot of people, you know, didn't necessarily agree with it. I'll get into it more in the video, but I thought George had a lot of really interesting ideas. And studying with him for 2 years, he was really a character, and he was one of my favorite teachers that I had in grad school, because he was really encouraging, yet had a very biting sense of humor, but was hysterically funny. and always dressed impeccably well. It would crack me up. George would be always come to class wearing the hippest outfits, and everybody really liked him. But he was a serious dude. He really was. But I loved his class. It was fascinating. He always made us write pieces for class, and I will make a Lydian chromatic concept video for you guys. That's coming up. So questions. Aaron, do we have any questions?
Yeah. Any ideas on developing solos? I see too many guitarists who floor the gas pedal by the third bar, and it sounds awful.
Don't want to floor the gas pedal. Usually, it's interesting because as a listener, guys that have chops, that have chops, you always wait, okay, when are they going to start to rip? But guys that don't have chops, you don't necessarily think about that don't have tremendous chops. And then you've got your guys that kind of surprise you with their chops. I mean, Wes, when you think about Wes, you don't think about chops necessarily, yet when Wes would play fast, it was always smoking. So you want to develop your solos. You want to develop your ideas slowly. You want to take ideas from if the previous soloist that played before you left you with an idea to develop, that's usually a good place to start with that. I'll tell you a great example of that is in Oleo from the Relaxin' record, where Miles finishes his solo and Coltrane picks up on his idea, as if Coltrane is picking up exactly in the same development scheme of what Miles would have played had he played another chorus, and goes on with his own solo. So I would say if you want to learn how to develop your solos, listen to that. But you need to develop melodic ideas, motifs, and then when you have the opportunity to really rip, that's when you want to do it, if you can do it. So, look for melodic fragments and start simple. Just start with a couple notes in your solo. If you're playing if you're playing a blues in B flat, So I would simply start out with a. So what did I do? I did like a. Okay, now that's just pure melody ideas. Obvious, I went to the four chord. And I ended on the flat 7. So you can hear where all the chord changes are when I'm playing, and I'm just playing straight melody there, trying to develop ideas and play little motifs. I did something like this. Let's see if I can remember what I played. On the G7. So I went down, but I went. So on the C minor chord, Da 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 da. Once again, following those chord changes. Now those are kind of jazz cliches that I'm playing there. I'm using a line cliche. And there's people that play ideas that you've heard a million times before that are licks that they connect together. There's people that play melodic ideas where it just sounds like straight melody. That's what Wes sounds like, or Metheny, or Johnny Griffin, or Miles, or Coltrane. And then you have people that kind of combine the two things where they have some lick playing and they have, Charlie Parker would have licks that he would play. And they would be connected by melodic phrases. So a lot of times when people would play really fast lines, I'll give you a great example. Lee Morgan, who plays trumpet on Blue Train, on the tune Blue Train. So Blue Train is on Miles Davis's record Blue Train. It's the first track on there. And the way it's set up is everybody takes a solo, and on the third chorus, the drums go to double time. I think it's the third chorus. And they play for two choruses at double time, meaning the chords move at the same rate, but the drummer's playing twice the tempo. And everybody starts playing 16th notes. And Lee Morgan plays one of the most smoking solos. And so everybody's playing these burn-in solos. Curtis Fuller plays the trombone on it. I forget who playing piano on it. I should remember that. Is that maybe Wynton Kelly plays piano on that record? Is that Wynton Kelly? Do you know that, Aaron?
Yeah.
On Blue Train? So, and everybody does two double time choruses on it, but Lee Morgan's has some of the most smoking lines, but they're lines that you've heard before that are kind of jazz. I want to say jazz cliches, although maybe they're jazz cliches because he played them first, but they're kind of like an expanded version of Charlie Parker. They're an extended version of what Charlie Parker was doing. They're super technical. They're really interesting melodically, but he plays a lot of great melodic phrases in there as well. And he was actually killed before his time by his wife in a club called Slugs. Believe it or not, his wife shot him on the bandstand. He died in his 30s. Terrible, phenomenal trumpet player, Lee Morgan. Go check out his solo on Blue Train, and you'll hear a perfect development balance of ideas, where he's playing slow melodic ideas, and then he goes into fast playing, and then he comes out of it back into melodic ideas. Pat Metheny is really great. Pat always starts out with slow, really melodic ideas, and then we'll do his double time lines later. Wes, same thing. That's typically how you do it, is you want to develop your solo based on melodic ideas, and then when it's time to build up the energy, then you start getting into more double time ideas. So that's my spiel on that, to use a German term. Is that even German?
Yeah. Got a lot of germs on here today.
Awesome. I wish I could say Achtung. I don't know. What else could I say? Why do you say hello?
Just Guten Tag.
Guten Tag. There we go.
We voted on the next few questions here.
Okay.
With 16 votes.
Yep.
Sometimes when I end a long practice session and go to bed, I hear a complete song in my head. What's the best way to write what's in my head?
You hear a complete song in your head and you want to write it? Keep your instrument right next to the bed and write it down, or record it with a tape with your iPhone or your Android message thing, and just hum it in there, and you'll remember it the next day. Happened to me many times. Doesn't happen to me anymore. Used to happen to me in my 20s. Are you in your 20s? Just out of curiosity. because I find that I used to dream more intensely about music, probably because I was forming a lot of new memories then, because I was practicing 10 hours a day. And when your brain is on overload,
28.
what's that?
28.
28, yeah. When your brain's on overload, typically people, they say that the human brain is at its peak level, is the processing speed between 24 and 29, and you're building a lot of memories there. I mean, I talk a lot about this where people yell at me about the perfect pitch thing you can't develop as an adult, but what you can develop as an adult is becoming a phenomenal player, which something that perfect pitch doesn't really have anything to do with, because like I tell my son Dylan, you could have the best ear in the world, if you can't put your fingers in the right place, nobody cares. So, you know, I don't have perfect pitch, but I can put my fingers in the right place most of the time. And so when you're in your 20s and practicing a lot, especially really long practice sessions, you tend to dream, because your brain is consolidating a lot of these ideas from your practice session, because it's converting that information that you're taking in through all these senses and building the areas where your motor neurons are firing, and it's doing repair to those areas and cleaning those things up. So I think you'll dream really vividly about music in a real visceral way, and you'll have a lot of ideas and that you can convert into actual musical ideas. So sometimes you'll dream complete songs or musical phrases or things like that, and I've had that happen to me, but like I said, not really since I was in my 20s and I was doing a lot of practicing. You know, it's interesting, if there's a great Mike Brecker interview that I've talked about before where he talks about practicing, and he said his what he was practicing at the time would be about 2 months behind or 3 months behind what would end up in his playing. So he'd practice ideas, and it would take about 3 months before they would start creeping into his playing. And I would find the same thing. Not saying I'm like Mike Brecker was at all, but I think most people that's the case. So, but have something next to your bed and be ready to write, or just sing the thing in so you don't forget it. Just singing it in there and listening to it the next day will usually trigger the memory again. Aaron?
Second most votes here. We got how to play modally without relying on pentatonics.
Well, you know, playing modally without relying on pentatonics. You have to just know your modal scales, basically. You know, if you're playing in D Dorian, you know, like, and you're playing impressions, you know, you gotta just know. You gotta know where those modal scales are everywhere. And you also still want to think in progressions. That's the other thing. I mean, you can think and play, you know, if I've got D Dorian, I mean, I can still be thinking pentatonics, but you also want to add those extra notes in there. You want to add those extra notes of the scale. I'm trying to play, play modally without having any passing tones, but I played. Just knowing where those notes are all the way over the neck. You got to know your scales on guitar, on the saxophone, on the piano. Everything needs to be second nature. You need to be able to pick out, if I go here, 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 all those notes are in C major, okay? I knew that without ever, I can see that C major scale on the neck, and I know where all those notes are. It's not just about position playing, because you need to be able to move in between the positions. If I'm in A Dorian, and I want to play on just the B and E string, you know, and I'm going to play. So I'm just playing notes here on the... Then add 3 notes. So I started out with 2 notes on each string, and I did... Then I added 3 notes. That's all A Dorian. All right, then you add a 3rd string in, and then you do 3 notes on 3 strings. And you move on. If you're playing here... you start connecting all the positions. So that's the first thing. Before you add any chromatic notes, I'm a big stickler. You see me do these videos where I do a video on the mixed sharp 11 scale or the harmonic major scale or the altered dominant scale, and I do etudes, and every one of them, it's always at the end of the things. You should always go and listen to them. If you don't follow us, go and I never have any chromatic notes in them. And you should be able to do these things and build exercises and lines based off having no chromatic notes. The chromatic notes you add later for interest and to develop your lines even more. But you want to be able to play this stuff, play your ideas without having any extraneous notes. It's really great practice because you got to know where all those notes are in all those keys. And it just starts, you know, like if I'm playing in G major, I need to know where G major is here, and here. You need to be able to play it with no mistakes. So I just went across the whole neck there, and I played all of G major with no mistakes, but I shifted. So you should be able to play for an hour straight in any scale, altered dominant scale, whatever, and never play a wrong note. That's how you know that you've got the things down and you know where your notes are. You got to know where your scale tones are, and you got to know where the arpeggios are. Both. That's why I said in my jazz beginners for guitar, it goes for even people that are advanced. If you're going to play an A7, you should be able to play it nice and clean there, right? There I go, and I screwed up. And be able to do any type of interval patterns in there. And then you can add to these scales later on in arpeggios once you become more advanced. If I want to play... Ooh, that's kind of cool. And I did that. That's added a 13th, a triad that gives me the 13 flat 9 sound. And I went... actually called a bitonal arpeggio. Okay, so I'm using two different arpeggios. You can do the same thing where the bottom half has a natural fifth and it goes in to the 13 flat 9 sound. Okay, I could do the tritone. So I did A and E flat together. So I did A flat 7, then I went to my first available note. And then, so here's A flat, E flat, A. So I went I went from A7 to E flat major. Then I went up E flat major, and then came down A7. And I could go to here, down to E flat. And you should know where all those notes are. That's a real bitonal arpeggio. The first one I combined A7 with F sharp major. The second one I combined A7 with E flat major.
That ties in well with our next question.
Yes.
But before that, somebody just said they can't wait for the ear training program to come out. And
What'd you say, huh? I can't hear it. Sorry, just kidding.
They can't wait to buy the ear training program. And then some other people started asking what it's all about. Maybe you can just briefly.
The ear training program is going to be 13 or 14 videos, 13 videos that basically is my method of how you start from scratch with. I start with dyads, which are 2-note intervals, dyads, but I start with harmonic dyads, harmonic or harmonic intervals played at the same time. And before you move on to melodic intervals, you have to master harmonic intervals because they're much more difficult. It's way more difficult to go, what is this interval? You have to go da da, and you be able to, you have to be able to pick out those 2 notes. It's way easier to pick them out when you go than when I just play them like that. If I play bum 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 bum, sing that major 7 da da. When I play it like that, you got to be able to hear it, both notes. Harder on the piano because this will be based on the piano, not on the guitar. I'll have some stuff on guitar actually, but most of it will be on the piano. It's basically the way I taught my son Dylan, who has perfect pitch, but how I developed his ear to be able to hear 12-note chords. Because just because you have perfect pitch doesn't mean you can hear 12-note chords. Most people with perfect pitch can only hear a couple notes in a chord. They can hear simple triads. They can tell them to you. They can hear 3-note clusters maybe. But once they start getting into 5 and 6 note groupings of sounds, they can't distinguish the tones one from the next, and that takes a tremendous amount of practice. So you need to be able to learn things, intervals first, harmonically, dyads, then triads, and a triad can be a 3-note. It can be a chordal triad. Bum bum bum. And you need to be able to sing the things. As soon as you hear them, you should be able to pick out the notes by ear. So that's a big thing, is training your ear to distinguish the sound. You should also be able to know when you hear this sound that's a minor 9/11 sound. I heard that, I did one of my videos where I talked about my last film scoring video. And there was a voicing in one of the pieces that was built on F, and it was this with F in the bass there, but it was in the strings. And as soon as I heard that, oh, that's an F minor 9/11 voicing, because I know that voicing, I know that major 7 sus2 sound over the F. I could hear that sound. It was obvious to me to hear that interval combination, this part of it. So, that interval combination, bum, and those are things you need to be able to recognize instantly, and that's what I'm going to teach you to do. I'm going to teach you how to recognize when you hear a Lydian augmented chord, when you hear a major chord with a tritone in the bass, which would be a dominant 7 flat 9 flat 5. When you hear, like I just did here, F sharp major over A, that's a 13 flat 9 sound. When you hear that triad combination or that combination of a chord, you need to recognize a 13 flat 9 sound, Lydian augmented sound, minor major 7 sound, and be able to recognize them instantly. You don't have to know what they are, but your ear, I will teach you through my training method how to hear these sounds instantly, so that there's little time. Then it's combining being able to hear sonorities along with relative pitch, and being able to play the right chord scales over the things by ear instantly. will help in your arranging, everything. So if you're hearing a sound and you know what it is, and when I'm listening to a film score or something, or an orchestral piece, unless it's, Webern or something like that I may have to reference something, I know what the chord sounds are instantly. I know when I'm hearing a voicing like this. Let's say I have a voicing like this, something like, I can immediately hear that or this, I can hear that voicing. That's like an A minor with a flat 6, but I hear that flat 9 interval instantly. So if I hear a voicing in strings, Aaron was playing me stuff the other day. I'm like, oh, that's a Aeolian chord. It's got a flat 9 interval in it instantly. Just hear it, and you just know, you recognize all these combinations like that. So that's what my ear training, for an incredibly long answer, that's what my ear training method is going to teach. All that. You guys all have the best ears in the world. If you actually practice it every day. That's the thing. You just can't, it's not like taking a pill. You can't take a pill and get good. You got to be accompanied with a little bit of practice in the pill. I'm trying to lose 25 pounds. Because I went out and bought the shirt at the Gap last night as an extra large. And my wife wanted me to buy her a belt that she saw. Hey, can you pick up this belt? And I was like, yeah, no problem. She sent me a picture of it. So I said to the guy, you have this belt? And he says, yeah, we have it in stock. It's on sale. What size? And I said, extra small, or I don't know, 00. My wife is, she goes, oh, extra small. I said, yeah, it's like my wife weighs 99 pounds. I weigh almost 100 pounds more than her. It's ridiculous. So I'm trying to lose 25 pounds. But I can't lose 25 pounds in one day, and there's no pill I can take to lose 25 pounds. You got to do it by exercising and dieting, pretty much dieting. And that takes discipline. And being great on a musical instrument takes discipline. Nobody gets to be Yuja Wang by practicing for 1 hour a day. If you know who she is, if you don't know who she is, you should check her out. She's practicing 10 hours a day. Martha Argerich or Horowitz, whoever, anybody, Pat Metheny. He warms up 3 hours before every show. And he's playing more than that. Scott Henderson told me 12 hours a day. How much you practice, Scott, 12 hours a day? He's 62 years old. There's no shortcuts in this. You want to be great, you got to practice all the time. The same with ear training. But once you get it down, ear training is a little different. When you're practicing guitar, if you're a guitarist, your right hand can go. If you don't play for a couple weeks, man, oh, forget it. You guys all know that, all you guitar players, that right hand, that thing is just gone. I talked to John Petrucci about that. And he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, man, he goes, 1 week off, that right hand is and he's got ridiculously good technique. Steve Vai, same thing. They'll tell you the same thing. First thing to go, the right hand. Left hand can play anything. So you got to just keep it happening. Keep working on it. Yes, Aaron? Next question. A lot of lazy people out there. I know that.
Somebody's asking about the Beato book, page 260, which is 12-tone triadic formulas.
Oh!
Please explain.
Okay, 12-tone triadic formulas. They're called quadratonal arpeggios. Sound real fancy. That's really an idea from the Slonimsky book, the Thesaurus of Scales and Melodic Patterns, which is hard for me to say. Basically, it's 12-tone rows, but broken up into triads. So the first example in that book on page 262, is that what it is? It goes from C minor to D minor to E major to F sharp major. How do I remember that? Because I asked Aaron about it last week, or showed it to him last week. So it's taking, without repeating any notes, if I play like this, that's a 12-tone row there. How do I know? Because I played C minor, D minor, then I played E major, F sharp major. So any combination of those, I can play them in any order. I can go C minor, E major, D minor, F sharp major. That's what a quadratonal arpeggio is. It's a 12-tone roll based on 4 triad formulas, and they could be any kind of triads. D flat sus2 to E flat. I mean, so I'm trying to think of some of the formulas that are in there. But if you go to that page, those are rows, and when you play them super fast, I have a video on 12-tone triads. You can actually go and watch the whole video on my channel. But nobody goes back and watches these videos. I don't know why. I guess I could probably just put the same videos out again. People think that they were new. Go watch some of the old videos. Somebody wrote in yesterday. So anyways, that's to answer your question and not be a wise guy. They're 12-tone triads. They're 4 triads put together that create a 12-tone row, which is actually great for ear training. And there's a part of my ear training videos that actually use quadrotonal arpeggios. And when you get really good at it, it seems like you have perfect pitch. And I'm going to have my girls, I'm going to do a video with my girls and show you this about where I point to notes and they'll sing them based on intervals, but actually just remembering what the notes sound like, but using it in a different way, but based off this teaching method. So that's a cool page. I'm glad you got there. I can't find that page. Sometimes I go look for it. I'm glad I know it's on 262 now. I'm going to remember that. But I have literally have a video on that. Now, that comes to another thing. Okay, well, there's a master class here in Atlanta. Any of you that live within a 6-hour drive should come to my master class. It's a week from this Saturday. It's 8 hours of me, as if you can't get enough, but you can actually ask me the questions in person. And you can go sign up on my website, rickbeato.com. I'd love to meet you guys and girls. You should really think about coming. I've never done one. It's the first and only scheduled master class. And it would be great to meet people in person and actually have real live questions. And we're going to actually be able to get into way more detail than we can here. Because like I said, I can't play music here. And music is the way that we actually learn stuff, is actually by listening to pieces and doing analysis and things like that. So, you know, sometimes I get away with stuff, like I played that Keith Jarrett thing because that's not even in it's not even on iTunes. I played that section of the Keith Jarrett thing, but sometimes I will upload things unlisted to see if YouTube will block it and take it down. And a lot of times it does. It takes it down, and I won't make a video on something if YouTube takes it down immediately. So so that's one of the big things about this master class. And I'm going to show you secrets that I won't share with you on here. If you come live, you actually get the real secrets. Anyways, that's just kind of a joke because there are no secrets. But somebody commented yesterday on my video, my harmonic major. The video had been out for an hour, and they're like, I can't believe there's only 2,000 views on this. Now, I realize that people that watch my channel are superhuman musicians and everything, but you guys must have friends that are musicians that you can share videos with. And if you know, like I get a lot of subscribers a day, but my videos, you know, compared to some other videos of people that I know, don't get nearly the views. And it's just because they're not shared, because I don't know why. There's actually a tipping point with YouTube with their algorithm that once you cross that threshold, YouTube starts pushing it out to more people. And it's the difference between a video getting 20,000 views and getting 200,000 views. And I've never had a video, other than videos of Dylan, that's gotten over 200,000 views. I don't think, have I, Aaron? Maybe one. But it's taken a year to get there. And, you know, I would like to think that with 100 and some odd thousand, 105,000 subscribers now, that my videos should get 30,000 views, every one of them, every day. Unless maybe I should just wait a week and put one out a week, like some people do. And I mean, like a lot of people do. But I don't believe in that, because there's so much stuff to learn that it takes years and years to get this down. It's like going to class every day. But I'm your only teacher here on this channel anyways. And I know that there's stuff on here that is not on other channels. It occurred to me that I forgot 2 triads in my harmonic major, because 2 people wrote and said you forgot E Phrygian and E Phrygian dominant. Now, most people have never even heard of those. Unless you watch my channel, then you actually have heard of these a million times. And it's common nomenclature, like leading triads. So Phrygian triad is 1 flat 2 5. And a Phrygian dominant chord is 1 flat 2 5 flat 7. And it would be a Phrygian major 7 chord would be 1 flat 2 5 major 7. You know, it's like pretty obvious. You just name the triad, and then you say whether it's got a regular 7th on it or a major 7th on it, or it could be a double flatted 7th on it. You know, just like you say a major 7th. A major 7th chord is really theoretically should be called, and in classical music is called a major 7th chord. And a dominant 7th chord is really called a major minor 7th chord. That's the actual name for it, but everybody just calls it a dominant 7th chord or a 7th chord. So I'm not sure why I got off into that tangent. Aaron, why did I get off into that tangent? Oh, if you guys don't just watch the videos, send them to other people and have them subscribe to my channel, and let's hope that, you know, let's get the word out there, because you know, this music's going to die if it doesn't. I mean, any kind of art music. It's just, it's so, you know, go look up jazz, search terms and everything, and they're just like, people don't search this stuff, but there's people all over the world that like it, but it's just that, you know, it's up to the community to push the stuff out there and be stewards of the art forms. And my channel is contemporary classical music, jazz music, and production, and ear training, and music theory, and all these different things. I mean, there's only one music theory. There is no classical music theory, jazz music theory. There's one music theory, and I combine both of those. So, but it's up to you guys to spread the word. I can't do it myself. I mean, I make the videos, and I put them out there, but if there's, you know, but they should get 50,000 views each one of them, I think.
Peter Smart is asking,
hey Peter,
if all these videos keep coming out, how do we have time to practice?
That's a great question, Peter. Well, let me say this, Peter. If you didn't give me such good ideas and the videos that you suggest, I wouldn't make so many, because every time I read one of your suggestions, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great video title. And all I need is a video title. Maybe I should put out less videos and you guys would have time. No, you know, I mean, my typical videos are now, I've shortened them a little bit, other than these, the live videos. My typical videos are probably about 17, 18 minutes, something like that, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the last few videos I've done, they're not that long. So you watch those, and then you practice, or you watch one in the morning, and then you kind of set up your practice time during the day based around it. But you know, you got to get, you know, for those of you that are my age or older, put your time in to get the hands warmed up. You know, you need at least 10 minutes of that before you start going. But you know, you watch the stuff, and it should spur ideas. And you come back to them. You don't necessarily have to watch the whole video at once. You start the video, you work with the ideas, and go back and watch the stuff. Like, you know, some of my best videos are videos I made a year ago, and they hardly get any views. And they didn't get many views in the first place because I didn't have that many subscribers. So, anyways, there's a lot of time in the day to practice. I mean, look, I make these videos, and I practice, and I have 3 kids, and I'm on the school board at my kid's school, and I do a million things. Peter, you're the one having tea at like 9 o'clock at night. You're, you know, I know you're a night owl. You got plenty of time to practice.
So we just voted on the next question here.
Okay.
How do you improve your timing?
Well, usually you play with a metronome and or with a beat. Drum Genius is a great thing. That's a great, you know, for playing over things, or programming grooves is really good. Or probably the best way, and I always told my students this: you want to improve your time, for you young guys, jump rope. That is the best way to improve your time and your rhythm. And jump rope to music, and try and jump rope in the beat of music, because you're actually incorporating your whole body, and it's extremely complex muscle movements. I always made my college students jump rope. It also puts you in I know that's not what you expected to hear me say, But you need to involve all your limbs. So either playing drums, playing drum rudiments on the piano, and improvising using drum rudiments. If if you're going to do a paradiddle, and you're doing right left right right left right left left, you should be able to do a paradiddle, and you should be able to do basic drum rudiments, even if you're not a drummer, just tapping on the table. And those are great ways to improve your timing. Timing needs to incorporate all the muscles of your body, okay? And whether it's tapping your foot, things like that. Like I see people that play and they tap their foot and it's not in time. Like, how do you not tap your foot in time? You should also be able to understand that when you're tapping, if you're tapping your hand to the beat of a song, when your hand comes up, it's an upbeat, but you have to actually put your other hand there. 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Then you start hearing the subdivisions like that. And but you need to feel rhythms, and you need to play rhythms and incorporate all the muscles in your body. So movements and things like jumping rope. For those of you that can't jump rope, practice with a metronome. And practice with a metronome on 2 and 4, practice with a metronome on 1 and 3, practice with a metronome that does polyrhythms. Steve Vai sent me this app. He's like, have you seen this yet? I'm not name dropping. He actually literally sent me this thing. He's like, have you seen this yet? It was like a polyrhythmic metronome. It's called like 5/3. And it was funny. I bought it. It's like 99 cents or whatever, and it does polyrhythms, and you can practice along with it. But and practice. Don't obviously you can practice your scales. You can practice them in quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, then do them in 16th notes, then do them in triplets, 5-note groupings and triplets, 16ths, or 6-note groupings, 7-note groupings, and things like that. And really feel the beat. And then I would also do a thing where you tap your foot, and you should try to play where you can actually play with the beat, where you can play ahead of the beat, behind the beat, and on the beat. And you really should practice. You should be able to play with the metronome and play behind the metronome, and you should be able to play with the metronome on the beat and slightly ahead. And your time needs to be flexible like that, because that's the only way. Because sometimes to play with energy, you need to be a little bit ahead. Sometimes you want to play with your feel way behind the beat and give it a little whole Beyonce kind of feel. Matheny plays way behind the beat. Some people play, Wes plays right on the beat with incredible feel and makes it just flow unbelievably. Some people play swing eighth notes, some people play straight eighth notes, more modern players, and you need to be able to do all that. You need to be able to swing when you need to swing, and you need to be able to play eighth notes, straight eighths over swing tunes, and you need to be able to play, any type of grouping over any tempo. So if you can master playing eighth notes on a tune and improvising, then you master playing triplets, then you master playing 16th notes, and you do 5-note groupings, and you improvise in all these things. Do them with a metronome. Do them with a metronome on 2 and 4, 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you have metronomes that do all weird things, so practice all of it. But pick one thing a day and practice different things on each day. People learn by unexpected things, and you don't learn, just like if you do the same weight training exercises, you don't end up actually getting any benefit after a while. Your body becomes used to using those muscles in those ways. You have to keep changing it up. You have to change up your practice routines all the time. Change up the way you use your metronome, jump rope, run, do things to music though.
A lot of people are requesting a jumping rope video now.
Jumping rope video? I'm going to do a jumping rope. I'm so fat that if I do it, it'll be like I create a polyrhythm. I said my daughter Layla was watching a mermaids video yesterday, and I said this. I did a late night Facebook Live last night at like 11 o'clock just to see who was on Facebook at 11 o'clock as an experiment. I got all these people from Australia and New Zealand and everything. It was awesome. But anyways, I said that Layla was watching this mermaid show that she and Lennon love, and they have the guys, I don't know what male mermaids are called, but Layla says, he has a 6-pack, and she goes, you have a tummy pack, Daddy. And no, you have a belly pack. And so I was like, okay, I'm going on a diet now. Layla said I have a belly. You know, because I said 6-pack. What is that? What do I have, Layla? She goes, you have a belly pack. And that's not good. Yes, Aaron.
Yeah, so when did you know that you wanted to be a teacher? What catalyzed this realization for you?
That's a great question. I knew I wanted to be a teacher because I love to learn, and I love I love being taught things, and then I love teaching people things. I'm fascinated by things. Anybody that has any expertise in any area fascinates me. Whether somebody can fix an engine, whether somebody is an expert in, in card tricks, whether somebody's an expert in, astrophysics, whatever it is. I like people that have mastery of different things, and that's why I'm most people have things that they are master in, no matter what education, whether they've gone to college, whether they work on the line like my mom did, in a factory with 100 dB of cans clanking 8 hours a day, and guys that ran forklifts, and they were experts at doing that, and I'm fascinated by people that are experts. So I love teaching and conveying information to people. When I became a college professor, it was strictly by accident, because I moved from Boston after getting my master's degree back to Ithaca, New York, where I'd done my other undergrad, to hang out with some friends of mine just for a couple days. That's kind of like I ended up in Atlanta. And my buddy Tom Wadsworth was like, yeah, you can come crash on our couch. And they had this house with this Dave, this upright bass player Dave, and Kenny Schiff, great guys. And they called it the outhouse because they're all out of their minds. And I lived in their living room. Well, a couple days turned into 5 months, and my second week there, I was playing a gig with my old guitar teacher, Steve, and he offered me a gig teaching at Ithaca College, where I'd done my undergrad, and I thought about it, and I had a choice. I was going to go to New York and try and make it as a player, or take this teaching gig for the time being and just see what happened. And it was like, well, let me check out this teaching thing and see if I like it. And I loved it. It was great. And I played gigs like 6 days a week anyway. So I was playing and I was teaching at the same time. And then I quit teaching in 1992. And I didn't teach again until I got on YouTube a year ago. I never taught anything. I didn't teach any lessons. Nothing. So I went from 1992 to 2016. How many years is that? Was that 25 years or something? How many years is that, Aaron? Long time. Without teaching anybody. And except I taught my kids music. So that's kind of why. And I love to teach. Absolutely love to teach. And our time is limited here on Earth, and if I can do a little part in raising the level of discourse, at least musical discourse, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to give back everything that I've been lucky enough to learn, and I know there's plenty of people out there that can't afford college, that don't live in places that have colleges to go to, or don't even have any good instructors. Somebody made a comment about on one of my John Williams videos. John Williams, how to write like John Williams? Well, you grow up in a musical family and you go to Juilliard and you do this and then you learn jazz and everything. It's like, well, a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people don't have the advantage. They don't live in New York City. They don't have parents that are musicians that even know what Juilliard was or is. Maybe they grew up in Montana. Maybe they grew up in India. And maybe they grew up in Auckland, New Zealand, and they can't get to Juilliard. Or they're nowhere near. They're in some small town in Iowa, and they can't get to any, and there's no good instructors anywhere. Well, that's where I come in. Because I can be anywhere at any time. I can be out in the Indian Ocean on the internet. I can be in Japan. I can be in, St. Paul, Minnesota, wherever. So that's my answer to that guy that said that about his wise guy answer for about John Williams. And John Williams is, you know, greatest film score of all time in my book. And but he had a tremendous advantage growing up when he did. He grew up in the 40s. He's 85 years old, you know. And the world was a very different place then than it is now. And people don't have the resources. You know, they have the resources with things like this where I can talk to you one-on-one. But people don't have the resources to learn this stuff. And you know, I honestly, I'll be honest with you guys. Khan Academy, I saw Sal Khan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Khan Academy, Khan, but it's basically free education for people. It begins around 3rd grade with basic arithmetic. And I'm talking like adding simple numbers. And Sal Khan, who is a MIT undergrad and a Harvard grad, Harvard MBA, and was working as a hedge fund manager. And he started this channel on YouTube. He was giving his niece he saw her at a wedding. I think it was his niece's cousin, and he was, you should watch his story, his TED Talk. And he started doing tutorials for her. And those tutorials ended up starting to get a lot of views by a lot of people. And then he quit his gig and financed himself until Bill Gates started talking about one of his videos. He did it for about 3 years. And Bill Gates' chief of staff called him up and said, we want to donate and invest in you. And they did, and Google did. And now they've got millions of subscribers, and it's a not-for-profit entity, and they teach people that don't have access to education all over the world. And it's invaluable to people here that have the opportunity of getting first-rate educations, and for people in third world countries that don't have those opportunities. If you have an internet connection, you can learn anything. You can learn combinatory mathematics, you can learn addition, subtraction, you can learn algebra, you can learn anything. So that, you know, for the people that weren't able to go to New England Conservatory like I did and have the background in multiple genres of music, I'm here for you. How's that? All I ask is you share my videos and get people to subscribe to my channel. And you should buy my book, because it's very helpful, because I go super fast on here, always. Aaron? Do people comment when I say things like this?
Yeah. So many questions.
I've been doing really long videos here that I haven't been posting because I'm practicing for my master class. That's why, but I haven't been posting them.
Somebody asked, I'd love to see him run through improvising leads like he did a couple of videos ago.
Improvising leads? I'm not sure what that means, leads.
Me either.
I think I was playing to a backing track or something, wasn't I? Yeah. It's kind of weird to improvise. Well, I mean, you don't need to have a backing track, but
somebody else asked just to hear you talk about modern harmony and voice leading.
Okay, modern harmony. Well, voice leading is extremely important, probably the most important thing. It's the first thing that you learn when you learn 4-part writing in college, in Theory 1. Or what most people learn and forget. There's rules to it that you begin, that eventually you break, but these first rules are really important. There's all these part writing rules that go along with counterpoint. And counterpoint and voice leading are basically the same thing. Voice leading is basically the smoothest way you move from chord to chord or from line to line. And you need to think of every note that you're playing as a separate voice. And it needs to go to a particular place. And obviously the smoothest way to voice lead things are typically how most people learn chords. For example, if I'm playing A minor 7 to D7, I'm doing A minor 7 to D9. I kept every note the same except for the root moved and the G moved to F sharp. But I kept what was the third of the A minor 7 becomes the flat 7 of the D7, and what was the fifth of the A minor 7 becomes the ninth of the D7. Now I could have gone, that's not good voice leading because this note doesn't need to go there. But this would be good voice leading too. Half-step movement is always the strongest. Either common tone or half-step movement is always the strongest. But they have to lead somewhere. Typically, so I had that voice lead down chromatically. You could also go, you could also voice lead it upwards like that. You could, move any of the voices that you want to move. You could keep some common tones here. Or, you could do things like this. Or do that. Now that would be a way of voice leading where I have movement in the progression. Or you can do things like that's really good voice leading. That would be kind of a typical ending that you would have if let's say you're in the key of G, and it starts on the half diminished flat 5 chord. So let's say you're doing So I was doing a 3-6-2-5 in G major, meaning a 3 chord, 3-6-2-5, 3-6-2-5, and then I went to 3-6-2-5 to the flat 5, half diminished, to the 4 minor 6, to the first inversion tonic chord, to the this could be a bunch of things. I think I played B flat 13, but you could play like an E flat 7 chord. Then I went to A flat 7, or maybe A minor 7 would work too, to A flat major 7 to G major 6 there. And there's many different ways. I voice led it differently almost every time there. That's the voice leading part. Now the contemporary harmony part, that's a completely different animal. I talk a lot about contemporary harmony in my videos, especially the videos where I do on chords and scales, which of course are my least watched videos and the most important ones. I guess if you don't have a catchy title that people don't, when I just title the video Lydians, the Lydian mode, or, well actually that one has a lot of views, but if you guys want to learn stuff about how to voice chords, go watch my scale. Go through my scale playlist and watch all the videos there, because that really is I talk about the how to build these chordal sounds by using intervals and interval combinations. And you take things like dissonant intervals, like a major 7th, and you combine it with other intervals that are more stable. If I take this major 7th and I combine it with a perfect 4th, it takes some of the bite out of it. If I combine it with a perfect 5th, it takes even more bite out of it, because the perfect 5th is a really consonant interval. The straight major 7 has a lot of dissonance. Put the 4th in there, there's still some tension there, because that 4th wants to resolve. But if you put the 5th in there, it really smooths out that dissonance. And I do these on the piano a lot with the voice leading, and I will play a lot of these chord sounds. I did it in the harmonic major where I played some of the sounds that come out of these things. And you can write entire pieces based on these one scale, which I do to make a point. I did a thing the other day though where I took the C major scale. I did a video called Dissonance Equals Emotion. And at the end of it, I did a video, a piece. For those of you that watched the end of it, you should watch, because at 9 minutes and 30 seconds or so, I have a little piece that I wrote that I've put my kids in. It's a little string piece, and it's all in C major, all white notes, yet it has tension in it, and it has progression in it. But it's looking for those half steps in the scale and the tritones and exploiting those. A half step, B to C, here can become, if I invert it, it can become a major 7th interval, or it can become a minor 9 interval. So 1, 2, there. Now if you invert a tritone, it's still the same thing. But I will incorporate those kind of intervals in chords, which I was just doing. If I have a chord voicing like that, that would be like a B minor 7 flat 6, or that could be a B major 7 inverse inversion. And I have that major 7th interval. But I could easily do this and voice it like that, more like Alan Holdsworth would do with a minor 9 interval if you can reach it. Or major 7, minor 9, or or I could do, how would I do this here? Or you can voice it there with a half step, which is really beautiful. So I got that, I got that, I got that. So you got half step, major 7, minor 9. And those are the places where you can get some really great modern sounds, especially if you know a lot of modern scales. Modern scales are things beyond the modes of the major scale. They're modes of the harmonic minor, modes of the melodic minor, modes of the harmonic major, modes of, then there's the octatonic or diminished scales, the whole step half, which I call dominant diminished, half step whole I call dominant diminished, whole step half, which I call tonic diminished. And those produce chords, but that's where you start getting in your more modern harmony. If I'm doing, where you start, so I'm doing things where that's from the diminished scale, or right there, those would be harmonies from the diminished scale, or I could play. And incorporate things with the melodic minor, with the harmonic minor, with harmonic major, and use modal mixture. And I gave this example yesterday in the video. If I have a C major chord, okay, I could play a sound out of C Ionian, C major. I could play a sound out of C Lydian, because C Lydian. My C Ionian sound might sound like this. Let's see, if I do this. Okay, that could be a C Ionian sound. I mean, that could be a C Ionian sound. That could be a C Ionian sound. But C Lydian sound is definitely going to sound different. C Lydian could be something like that. C Lydian augmented could be this. Then you could have use the Ionian flat 6, which is from the really the harmonic major scale, and that has a whole series of voicings that you can exploit there. So knowing all the possibilities of what you have the Dorian flat 5, that's one of the modes of the harmonic major scale. You have Dorian sharp 4, that's a mode of the harmonic minor scale. You have Dorian, you've got, there's all these different, you have Dorian flat 2, that's the second mode of the melodic minor. And you see how I picked these things out off the top of my head here? It's knowing all those possible chord scales because it gives you possible harmonic devices to use and places to go that you might not think of. So that's kind of my concept of modern harmony, is like you need to know everything. So, Aaron?
We good?
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Remember, rickbeato.com, masterclass. Those of you that live anywhere near Atlanta and have a car, drive up here. Come to see it. Meet me in person. I'd love to meet you guys in person. Thank you for watching. And as always, you know I appreciate it greatly. Take care, everybody.